Hello and welcome to episode 153 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the stream of dreams, the show of shows, and everything in between. You can find everything that I do over at my linktree.com/GnittWitt. That is GnittWitt. I am on Twitch, I am on Instagram, Threads, I am on YouTube and TikTok and many other places. Wow, what a week. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real week around here. Oh, and then I got a notification on my phone for TikTok. What does it say? Join Mr. Beast on his mission to ensure clean water for everyone. That's not a joke. It's just literally, well, I don't know if the camera is going to pick it up. Yeah, it says join Mr. Beast on his mission to ensure clean water for everyone. If I know, I'm going to toss my phone. If I know anything about Mr. Beast, I have to imagine that he will make providing clean water to everyone some sort of game show competition. Like, you're going to win if you're going to win a glass of water if you can climb through this, whatever. I just like, is that what Mr. Beast is? It's just like modern day Fear Factor, except you get like basic human necessities. Is that, I don't know. Like, I don't know nothing about, I never had a Beast burger. I've never watched the Beast games. I don't even go Beast mode. So I don't know nothing about Mr. Beast. It's just so funny that we talk about TikTok and then immediately my phone's like, hey, you want to help Mr. Beast give people clean water? How about Mr. Beast just gives people clean water and then I just stay out of it? How about that? The problem is that if Mr. Beast doesn't make some big to-do over giving people clean water, he doesn't grow his social media followings. He doesn't get paid off of it. I'm not a saint by any means, but if you're making a big to-do on TikTok of all places over giving people clean water, you're probably not that invested in giving people clean water. It's what I would say. But really, it doesn't matter what I'm going to say because for the next hour, we just got to fill time. So we're going to talk about video games. We're going to do something different. This time around, we're going to talk about video games. It's crazy, I know, but we got a healthy chunk of news, probably more news than I really need. But I thought some of these news stories were interesting. Maybe I'll cut them down as we go along, and I'm just like, I don't really want to talk about this. Don't want to talk about this. Don't want to talk about this. But we got some news to talk about. I have been playing some games. I am looking over at my list of games that I've been playing, and I have a lot of games, and I forgot to add one. We'll type it in right here. I've been playing juggling 6 games over the last week, and some of these games I'm not going to be returning to in the next week or so. Some of them I will, but we'll talk about them. We're going to kick things off though with news. We'll save my thoughts on the games that I've been playing until the end. Battlefield 6. Have you heard of this game? This is the open beta. It's a limited open beta. It's only running kind of during the weekends. I think it's running from Thursday to Sunday or something. It's not like, oh, you can go play it for the next 2 weeks. It's like, oh, they're only running it at these times to stress test and do all this stuff. But anyways, Battlefield 6, the latest and greatest installment in the beloved Battlefield franchise, and it is blowing up right now. It is incredibly popular amongst people that are looking to get into the free beta. Now, in fairness, this is a free taste of the game. Who can say if this game will sell that many copies? Who knows if this game will get this many, peak concurrent players? I can't say for certain, right? We get excited, and when it comes to the gaming industry, we get excited about the numbers that we get excited about because there aren't a lot of other numbers to go off of. If that makes any sense, right? We get excited talking about, oh, Call of Duty made this much money or did this or did that, but we actually have no frame of reference. When we talk about movies, for example, we have a rough idea of what the budget for a film was, potentially, right? This person on my excuse me, this person in my chat seems like a terrible person. Anyways, we'll just solve that problem by blocking them. The point is that, like, you have a rough idea of how much Superman the movie costs to make, right? You have no idea how much Battlefield 6 costs to make. And when Battlefield 6 does come out, how many of those players are, playing it as part of the EA subscription service? How many people are getting the deluxe edition of the game? It's all vague. So we look at concurrent players, peak players, and stuff like that, and try to get an idea of just how popular the game is. You don't actually get an idea of how successful the game is doing, both short term and long term. So with that said, I still think these numbers are crazy. These numbers are fabulous. If I was working on Battlefield 6, if I was EA, I'd be, jumping out of my seat looking at these numbers. But anyways, I'm getting this from Tom's Hardware. This was like the quickest news publication I could find that was running this story, and I'd like to share it with you today. Battlefield 6 surpasses record 500,000 concurrent players on Steam, an all-time high for the franchise. That's 520,000 plus. And the open beta surpasses every Call of Duty ever in player count. So that means that Call of Duty, Warzone, whatever they call it, the free-to-play Call of Duty game did not have numbers like this. Black Ops 6, last year's Black Ops, did not have the numbers that this did. And again, it's a beta, it's limited time, FOMO, you want to get in, make sure you play it, all that stuff. EA launched the open beta for only 2 days. If you got it in the open beta, it was only 2 days long. At the time of the writing, it was sitting at over 500,000 concurrent players with a peak of 521,079. Those are the best numbers for any Battlefield ever, and by far, it's clear the community is showing love for the game, and people seem pretty excited about it. Battlefield 6 open beta currently, at the time, again ranked 18th in the all-time player count for a Steam game. Now that might not sound like much, but you have to keep in mind a couple of things. The only other first-person shooters on that all-time player count is Counter-Strike and PUBG, that's PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and Apex Legends. Now, the other thing I will tell you about the Steam charts, because I've been looking at the Steam charts lately. I'm a sicko that way. Steam DB, that's what I want. For those wondering, like 500,000, concurrent players is pretty crazy, especially considering the only other first-person shooters, all-time peaks were Apex Legends, which had 624,000 all-time peak at any given time. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which had 3,257,248 peak concurrent players, and a little game called Counter-Strike 2, which had 1.862 million. Currently, Counter-Strike is the most popular game on Steam with 1,116,501 players currently playing the game, which is fucking crazy. I don't necessarily see Battlefield on this current list, though I just briefly scrolled through it. 15,000 people playing Fallout 4, which is kind of nuts. Anyways, very, very popular, like incredibly popular, and that's just the numbers for Steam, right? Who knows if you are going to see similar numbers on PlayStation, on Xbox, and stuff like that. But an incredibly popular, initial beta rollout. We'll see what the numbers are like this weekend, and maybe I'll be reporting back sometime next week to talk more about the success of Battlefield 6. Speaking of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, that's PUBG to you and me, Russ. PUBG has decided to, it's finally time. They're leaving the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One behind. I'm getting this from Tom Phillips over at IGN. Tom Phillips, not related to Tom's Hardware, but shares the same first name. PUBG has announced it will ditch support for the aging PlayStation 4 and Xbox One beginning this November, following 8 years of service. The veteran Battle Royale game previously said it would transition its console version to supporting just the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S later this year. Now we know when. In a statement to the game's player base, the game's development team said this decision weighs heavily after so many years, but it was now a necessary step in order to better support the game's PS5 and Xbox Series X and S builds, and to ensure they were not holding back any further. Saying, this shift is a necessary step towards aligning PUBG console with current-gen consoles, the game's development team wrote today. This is actually from today. This is like hot off the presses. To provide our players with a more stable gameplay environment on console and ensure smoother, more seamless experiences with further updates, we've decided to transition to current-gen consoles. Following this transition, console players will see improved visuals and more stable frame rates. In addition, we expect to reduce ongoing crash issues through memory-related optimizations. As part of this transition, we will be ending support for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. PUBG will remain downloadable and playable on PS4 and Xbox One until November 13th, 2025, after which it will no longer be accessible. Account details and purchase items will be preserved. However, if players log in on a PS5 or Xbox Series X and S in the future. At this time, the Xbox Series S supported specs will offer 1080p and 1440p at either 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second, while the PlayStation 5 specs will be 1440p and 60 frames per second. And the Xbox Series X and PS5 Pro specs will be 2160p and 60 frames per second. Still, despite the improvement on offer for newer consoles, it's clear there's some nostalgia for Sony and Microsoft's older machines. It weighs heavily on us to deliver this news to our console players who have enjoyed PUBG on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One for so many years. We still vividly remember the epic battles, the heart-stopping moments, and the camaraderie that brought us together. We are deeply grateful for every moment you spent with us over the past 8 years. This was not a decision made lightly. It comes after a long and careful consideration in pursuit of the continued growth and long-term future of PUBG console. I've never played. I've played PUBG. I played PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I've done that. Never once played it on console, but it does get you thinking, right? Like when we think about the biggest games on PlayStation 4, we're talking PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. We're talking Fortnite. We're talking Grand Theft Auto Online. We're talking Apex Legends, right? Warframe's probably up there. Fortnite, I don't know if I said that already. Warzone. And now we're starting to see, like, 5 years after the PlayStation 5 had already come out, they're going to fully commit to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S for the future of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Which begs the question, is anyone who's sitting around playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds interested in the idea of a PlayStation 6? Right? Some of those people are probably going to have to fully commit to a new console, PlayStation or Xbox, or maybe they go PC. I know these games are quite popular on PC as well. But I do have to wonder, like, the PlayStation 5 came out in 2020, dog. We are like 5 years into it coming out, and we are only now seeing some of the biggest games in the world fully commit to that console. It makes you wonder. I think we're going to probably be in this console generation for the long haul, folks. I would strap in if I were you. If we're 5, there will come a time where they will stop making Call of Duty for PlayStation 4. It hasn't happened yet. There will come a time where they will stop making, Fortnite for PlayStation 4, Grand Theft Auto Online for PlayStation 4. It hasn't happened yet, but when it does, is everyone just going to be like, okay, great, we can fully commit to the PlayStation 5. Now let's buy a PlayStation 6. Like, who gives a fuck about a PlayStation 6? Who? Like, people already went and bought a PS5 Pro, which is only slightly better than an Xbox Series X, which is only slightly better than a PlayStation 5, which is only slightly better than an Xbox Series S. Like, who gives a fuck? Who? Tell me, where are these people that are like, I need a console box that is so much more powerful that I can get my PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds at 4K resolution at 120. Those people just simply don't exist. And if they do, they're on PC. And PC will almost always, to some degree, be held back by the popularity of games that need to run on multiple consoles, such as PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and the difficulty optimizing high-end graphics for a variety of machines, which is kind of the same thing, actually, right? Because you might have a you might have a PC that is significantly more powerful than a PlayStation 5 Pro, but you're not going to get a PUBG that is significantly better looking than what a PS5 Pro can output, because they need to make sure that that game runs on an Xbox Series S. So I just to me, I'm actually to some degree celebrating that we're finally moving on from the PlayStation 4 consoles in terms of these games, right? Like, I'm not if this was single player games, it'd be totally different, right? But like, this is a multiplayer game that if it wants to grow, it has to evolve. And if it wants to evolve, it has to move away from, bottleneck systems such as the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It just simply has to. You can go play Uncharted 1 on a PS4 until the cows come home if you want. There's nothing wrong with that. However, like, this should have happened, in my humble opinion, just in terms of pushing the medium forward and the games forward. This probably should have happened a while ago. So excuse me if I am celebrating the fact that PUBG has decided the time is now. Let's move on. Remedy. Let's talk Remedy. Remedy's put out a bunch of news. I'm just going to cover some of it because I find this to be actually the most interesting news that Remedy's brought to light recently. Remedy is reportedly unsatisfied with how their cooperative first-person shooter FBC Firebreak launch sales went, but it says that they have a solid game to build on. The publisher says the launch underperformed, but player feedback is getting more positive. Now, before I even read this news article from videogameschronicles.com, shout out to videogameschronicles.com, I want to just take a look at what they're talking about in terms of FBC Firebreak. Where is FBC Firebreak at these days? FBC Firebreak is $50. It currently has its most recent reviews are reportedly mostly positive. Actually, what I want to do is go to Steam, go back to SteamDB, and I'm just curious, what does the FBC Firebreak, what do the charts look like? All right, well, I'll tell you right now. Hold on, stop the presses. Hold on. I've talked a lot of shit about Splitgate 2, and I'm going to talk more shit about Splitgate 2 later on in the podcast, but I just want to say something right now. I looked at the player numbers for FBC Firebreak, and I can see why Remedy are unsatisfied with the game. The game had roughly 1,992 peak concurrent players of all time. That was 2 months ago when the game came out. In the last 24 hours, there have been a maximum player count of people playing of 21 people. Right now, there are 9 people playing FBC Firebreak on Steam right now. These are the only numbers I have. I don't know about PlayStation. I don't know about Xbox. But I can tell you right now, what I do know is this game fucking tanked. This game shit the bed. But apparently Remedy has a solution. Apparently Remedy has a plan, man. Let's see if I can actually get to the news story that actually covers what their plan is. Because I was reading it and they talked about, oh, we have a big update coming out. Let's just go through the story. The game originally launched on June 7th on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. It was their first fully self-published game. And also, this game did come out on Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, meaning you did not need to buy the game if you wanted to play it. Which means that if you had a Steam account and you had a PC, you could have got it on Xbox Game Pass for PC, and that's what I imagine most people did. But then why would you be, hold on, before we get further into the story, then why would you be like at all, like, are they, like, they say the word unsatisfied. Remedy does. They say the word unsatisfied when it comes to player sales. Are they surprised? Because there are like 3 different ways to play the game for free and not buy it. Why would anyone buy this game? Like, at launch, the game didn't seem like something worth buying. But you didn't have to because of Game Pass on consoles, PC, and PlayStation Plus. Anyways, on Steam, which was always planned as the primary consumer sales channel on PC, the launch underperformed. You can say that again. The publisher says the initial feedback on the game was negative, but also says that over time, it's worked hard to turn this around and claims that players who have stuck with it are happier now. The game's initial onboarding experience and mission structure resulted in high early player drop-offs and an influx of negative reviews. As players spent more time in the game and we released updates improving the game, sentiment in reviews turned more positive. Overall, Remedy says commercially we were unsatisfied with the launch phase consumer sales of FBC Firebreak. Despite this, it believes it can turn around the game's fortune over the long term. FBC Firebreak was designed as a game that evolves over time. Despite the rocky launch, we believe we have a solid game to build on. Players who spent over an hour with the game reviewed the game mostly positive, showing us that the core experience of the game is entertaining. We have already rolled out patches and communicated on how the game will continue to develop. Looking ahead, a larger major update in late September will be the next key step for FBC Firebreak. This will be supported by targeted marketing activities, which we expect to drive interest in the title. We are committed to continuing to work on FBC Firebreak, engaging with the community, and expanding the game. When FBC Firebreak hit its 1 million players milestone 10 days after release, Remedy acknowledged on social media that it still had a lot of work to do improving the game, saying, "We know there is still a lot of work ahead of us and we are super motivated by it. We have a lot of exciting things cooking for Firebreak players. More about that soon." So we see this a lot now. I would say once this happens like more than like 2 or 3 times, this starts to become a trend. And the trend is to put out a game that bombs and then continue to update the game in the hopes that they can turn it around. I don't see, I'm looking, I don't know why I'm looking around this room as if I'm trying to visualize what it means to see something, but I don't see FBC Firebreak turning anything around. What like, let's start with this. The player base, if we just purely judge it on the player base on Steam, what is there to turn around? Like, forget the actual game and what you do and what you play. Who is going to be around to give that game another chance? Who is going to be there to buy the game? The game is $50 Canadian right now on Steam. You could cut that price in half when the major update comes out. Who is going to be around to turn this game around? Like, I don't think we'll ever get anywhere close to 1 million concurrent players across all platforms. I know we can only measure really Steam, but like there's no way. I'll say this. Man, I can't believe I'm going to say this. The friends and family who listen to this podcast, everyone's going to kill me for saying this, but I think Splitgate 2 has a better chance of turning things around than FBC Firebreak does. I'll say that. Right? Because right now you have a lot of people hating on Splitgate. The people that are around are hating on Splitgate 2. And what happens is when you hate on a game, you still keep that game's name on the tip of your tongue. You still talk about it. You still breathe its existence back into the world, even if it is back in beta or it's struggling or it's updating or whatever. Nobody is me. I'm the one talking about FBC Firebreak. And I don't even know why I'm doing that. I don't know why I decided to make this game news part of the podcast today, but I did. And the reason for that is because I just wish Remedy would move on. Right? Like if they want to try again at another shooter, sure. If they want to try again at another multiplayer game, why not? But I don't think FBC Firebreak hit to like fully commit to a major update. I also think that if and when that major update comes out, it'll probably be the last major update for FBC Firebreak. But like targeted marketing activities, they're going to pay a bunch of Twitch stream. Like, also, I'll just say this. When I talk about like shitting on the idea of paying a bunch of influencers and Twitch streamers and game content creators like money to play the game, like this is not an act of jealousy. This is me questioning if that money was better spent anywhere else, up to and including just letting the thing die. Right? You know, and if you think like, oh, well, you'd be singing a different tune if they showed up at your house with a bag full of dollars to play FBC Firebreak, you're damn skippy. If they came to your boy and said, we would like you to market FBC Firebreak to people and we'll give you money, I would entertain that. I would entertain that conversation. Absolutely. Right? I would part a fool with their money. But as someone from the outside looking in, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if you should be paying anybody as part of targeting marketing activities. I don't like, and they don't know. They didn't say, we don't know. They didn't say that, oh, it's going to be Twitch streamers. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. Like, who knows? Maybe the targeting marketing activities are going to be, hey, the game is like 50% off because we put out a major update and we want people to play it. Like, I don't know. Right? But I don't see a world in which FBC Firebreak turns much of anything around. But I would love to be wrong. Wouldn't it be funny if like this time next year, we're all just like, ha ha ha, FBC Firebreak is the biggest video game in the world. The other thing I would say is that like, if this big update is coming out in September, if we look at the game release for, calendar 2025, a lot of games start to come out in September, right? If I may, for example, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, The Order of the Giants DLC comes out September 4th. Okay. NBA 2K 26 comes out in September. NHL 26 comes out in September. Borderlands 4 comes out in September. Dying Light the Beast comes out in September. Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles comes out. EA Sports FC comes out in September. Silent Hill F comes out in September. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds comes out in September. A game called Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 1 comes out in September. Fucking Everybody's Golf comes out in September. Garfield Kart 2 All You Can Drift comes out in September. Okay, well, what about October? Borderlands 4 makes its way to Switch 2 in October. Battlefield 6 comes out in October. Barbie Horse Trails comes out in October. Ninja Gaiden 4 comes out in October. Arc Raiders comes out in October. The Outer Worlds 2 comes out in October. There are a lot of and then at some point we're gonna get a release date for Call of Duty Black Ops 7. We don't have a release date for that yet, but it's coming, y'all. So what are you gonna? How can you compete with any of this? With it'd be different if like, oh really, the only big game coming out in September is fucking Pac-Man World 2 Repack, the Bastard Pack Edition. If it was just like that and Slime Rancher 2, it'd be maybe a different story. But, that's also not taking into account whatever updates are going to come out for Warzone or Fortnite or Overwatch 2 or Helldivers 2 and stuff like that. I love Remedy. I think they do great stuff, which is what frustrates me so much on the idea that we're going to keep doing this, because I don't know why. Speaking of keep doing this, Stalker 2 development roadmap has been released. A roadmap for Stalker 2, a game that was in development for a very, very long time, came out, and it seemed okay. It didn't seem to maybe set the world on fire, which in fairness, I don't know if Stalker 2 was ever going to set the world on fire, but it just didn't seem to. It seemed to miss in a couple of spots. At least that's how I felt when I played it. Long story short, the roadmap that's going to be for the later half of this year is now available. I'm getting this from Vicky Blake over at IGN.com. Vicky Blake, out there slanging that news. It's getting the roadmap includes changes to both the base game and the Zone Kit modifications tool, as well as plans for its previously confirmed release on PS5 and PS5 Pro, saying our main mission in the near future is upgrading the game to Unreal Engine 5.5.4 GSC Game World, the developer said. This will bring new features and new tools to make the zone an even better place, but more importantly, bringing the latest Unreal Engine 5 optimizations will lead to better stability and performance. However, by doing this, GSC acknowledges it may shake up the timing of other updates, adding, "We're taking this risk like true stalkers would, and we'll do our best to hit our 2025 goals." Now, there is still no mention of multiplayer or anything like that. Let me kind of run down what we can expect from Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl's update roadmap for later on this year. The engine update to Unreal Engine 5.5.4 for optimization, various night vision devices. They're also looking to add binoculars. They're also looking to add their A-Life simulation updates, which will include more A-Life Zone, which is various technical improvements and updates. NPCs can see in the dark as good as before. They're also going to update the NPC combat, and they're also going to update the mutant combat and balances. They're going to add new anomalies, new missions from old and new friends, new weather scenario, a master difficulty preset, extended day-night cycle, stashes loot rework, stamina and energy drink system rework, immersive display mode, player equipment UI updates, more UI updates and improvements, local save backup restoration, further optimization and anomalies fixing, Zone Kit Phase 1 to Phase 2, auto modding, narrative tools, improved compatibility of various mods to interact with common game systems, enhanced blueprint modification support, technical improvement and optimization, a Discord holiday event, more Stalker Legends of the Zone Enhanced Edition improvements, and the release of Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl on PS5 and PS5 Pro. Let's talk Nintendo, and then we'll maybe see where we go from there. Nintendo had its Indie World Showcase, and this was indie games, third-party indie games, and all of that stuff showcased for the Nintendo Switch 2. For the Nintendo Switch in general. And there were some good games. Do not get me wrong. There were some good games. Unfortunately, not a lot of what I saw really blew me away. I was kind of looking forward to this, and I feel like it kind of dropped the ball to some extent. That being said, they showed off 18 games, and instead of, going and explaining each and every one, how about we just run down the list, okay? They showed off Mina the Hollower, Well Dweller, Neverway, Herdling, Is This Seat Taken, Little Kitty, Big City, which is getting a free update, Content Warning, Ball Pit, which is a great game, Ultimate Sheep, Raccoon, Glaciered, Winter Burrow, Undusted, Letters from the Past, Tiny Bookshop, Caves of Cud, Strange Antiquities, Opus, Prism Peak, Go-Go Town, and their big headliner was UFO 50, which is out now, currently sitting at a 91 in terms of review scores. UFO 50 regarded as one of the best games of 2024, though I never had the chance to play it. Now I can. Originally was, so for those wondering about UFO 50, UFO 50 was originally a PC exclusive. Now it is making its way to Nintendo Switch. I imagine that it will eventually make its way to PlayStation 4. Probably PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but it'll probably make its way to consoles eventually. UFO 50, if you've never heard of UFO 50, is a compilation of 50 games of varying genres and length. And it is basically a collection of games made by a group of developers. But it's in the style of like a fake game developer. So the idea is that you put in the disc and it's like, this is from UFO Soft, which is not a real game developer. And what it is that you play their 50 games that were released over 1982 to 1989. So these are like fake retro games for lack of a better word. However, the thing is that these games, a lot of them are like, arcade games, action games, puzzle games, platformers, RPGs, but all of them are like real full-sized, like a lot of them are real full-sized games. Like the thing that makes a UFO 50, from my understanding, so spectacular is that you can load up a game and you might get hours and hours of, full gameplay out of it, because of how long those games actually are. Now, you probably need to be in the mood for retro to some extent, or have nostalgia for, gaming of the mid to late 80s and stuff like that. But if you have a Switch 2 and you're interested in this, you might want to check it out because it is seemingly quite special. I think it's about $30 if I remember correctly. Final Nintendo news story, and then we will take our first break. Really quick, Nintendo has announced My Mario, which is a range of products for young children, including amiibo building blocks. My Mario will go on sale in Nintendo's Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto stores from August 26th, with select products being released outside of Japan next year. One of the main products in the range is a wood block set featuring characters and items from the Super Mario series. They'll be sold in 3-piece sets for about $20 or a full 30-piece set for $135. Each of the character blocks, Mario, Luigi, Peach, Yoshi, is also an amiibo, meaning that they can be used in compatible games instead of the standard amiibo figures for those characters. Book publisher Shoga Kukan, which publishes the long-running Koro Koro comic, is also releasing a book called Hello Mario, which lets children open Mario's mouth and turn his face around. If you've never played Super Mario 64, that is taking influence from that game where you can open up the game and then mess around with Mario's face if you want. This will also be accompanied by a free app also named Hello Mario, which will be released on smart devices and Nintendo Switch, which lets players pull Mario's face and turn it around similar to the screen from Super Mario 64. I didn't know they mentioned that in the article. Anyways, a series of short 1-minute stop motion shorts called It's Me Mario, will be released on the official My Mario website and Nintendo's own YouTube channels. Other products are being made for the My Mario range by a variety of companies. Bandai will be releasing hoodies and rompers that dress children up as Mario, as well as t-shirts, backpacks, and tableware. I mean, I just brought this up because it's Nintendo. Like, I don't need children's clothes. I don't need a romper. I don't need a stuffed Mario plushie. I don't need socks that have the mushrooms on them. I don't need a bib. I don't like. This is not to surprise anyone. I don't need a bib. Anyways, the usual thing is that, like, you think of Nintendo as maybe being a little protective of a lot of its brands and stuff, despite a heavy insistent on merchandising. I would just be curious to know if we get more Mario stuff, more My Mario stuff in the past. Like, I frequently find myself at a mall. Like, will I be able to, like, walk into a store and be like, oh, there's My Mario stuff, and then, like, keep going and whatever. Like, anyways, Mario's for the kids. There's two things that I know that are for the kids: Mario and the Wu-Tang Clan. And you can think about that while we take our first break. Stick around. We will be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. It is good to be back talking about the news as we continue on. Diablo series head Rod Ferguson is leaving Blizzard after 5 years. He says, it's time for me to step away, sword in hand, and see what's next. Hopefully he kept his pants on as he was out the door. Ferguson was previously a program manager at Microsoft before working at Epic Games to lead on Gears of War. He moved on to Irrational Games, 2K, and Black Tusk Studios before returning to Microsoft to serve as the head of the Coalition and work on Gears of War again. So to some extent, Rod Ferguson's career, a little bit of a circle. That was until he left the Coalition after nearly 5 years to join Blizzard and lead the Diablo franchise. But following the sale of Activision Blizzard, he found himself under the Microsoft umbrella for a third time. He can't catch a break. Now Ferguson has taken to social media to confirm that he has stepped down from his role as Blizzard Senior Vice President and Diablo General Manager in search for a new challenge. He said, when I joined Blizzard 5 years ago, I had two main goals, besides getting my sword, to revitalize one of my favorite franchises of all time and to have a meaningful impact on the company I admired, he wrote on LinkedIn. And it is with great pride and gratitude that I can now look back on this period of my career and say not only did I achieve those goals, but having the privilege of leading this team alongside some of my favorite people in the world and shipping amazing experiences for our players helped me to grow as a leader and as a person. The Diablo franchise in its almost 30 years has never been stronger and more relevant than it is right now, thanks to the hard work of the many passionate and talented Diablo team members over these 5 years. From the return of a classic in Diablo 2 Resurrected, to the bold leap into mobile with Immortal, to the record-breaking launch of Diablo 4 and its first expansion, Vessel of Hatred, each of these games form the foundation upon which the teams will continue to build the franchise's bright future. I am extremely grateful for the honor of playing some small part in this extraordinary franchise, and as I prepare to leave Blizzard and Microsoft, I do so with the full confidence in Diablo's plans, teams, and leadership. As for me, stay tuned to details on my next adventure coming soon. I have not checked in on Diablo 4 in a while. I don't know. I know that they're running a sale right now. I know that it was on PlayStation Plus. I'll just say, you should look at Diablo 4. You should play Diablo 4. I think Diablo 4 is a good game. Is it a game that is necessarily going to grab you for hours and hours and hours of your life? Maybe not. It did for me, but I don't feel like, I could go back to it and immediately be like, yes, just pull me back in for another, dozens of hours or so. That being said, I also don't have the Vessel of Hatred expansion pack, so I couldn't even tell you if like that is something that can really pull people into that game or not. That being said, you know, Diablo 4. I think my problem with Diablo 4 is that I think they really just needed to get that game out the door and get it out and have it work. Like functionally, Diablo 4 works. Functionally, like for your I would say this: if you're thinking about playing Diablo 4, I would say from the moment you pick a character and you start playing to the moment you're done with the story, I think there's a lot of fun to be had. Like I think it is a fun story campaign in Diablo 4. I think really the problems lie in, you know, the post game in Diablo 4, the seasonal model, this idea that they want you to keep coming back to keep playing more of the game. There's a lot to do, and I didn't even do and see everything that I could do in Diablo 4 during my time playing it. But it was just never a thing where I'm like, oh, the new update came out, I can't wait to. It was just like, yeah, maybe I'll get to it. But like, if you never played Diablo 4, I think it's a good game. I think the story campaign and stuff is a lot of fun. I know that they added new story in Vessel of Hatred. Maybe I will check that out. Eventually, it's on sale for 60% off. So maybe I should. We shall see. Curious to see where Rod Ferguson ends up. I hope that he gets as far away from Microsoft as possible. Bithell Games, this is the studio led by Mike Bithell, is making the majority of its full-time staff redundant. Bithell Games has announced that it is making the majority of its full-time staff redundant after failing to secure a new larger scale project. They have been unable to secure a new larger scale project, reducing the size of its staff. This means that 11 jobs are being made redundant. This constitutes the majority of the full-time staff. It became clear leading up to the release of our most recent game that we were not immune to the challenges faced by many game development teams seeking funding partners in 2024 and 2025. This is a statement put out, you know, by the Bithell studio, Bithell Games, excuse me, saying we've fortunately been able to communicate these challenges ahead of time and work with affected staff to ease departures as much as possible via severance packages. Bithell Games is best known for Thomas Was Alone, Tron Catalyst, and John Wick Hex. The statement continues, it's important to state that this was an incredible team of exceptionally talented people. If you're a developer reading this and you're hiring, anyone among those affected would be a great addition to your studio. Please reach out if we can help you put you in touch. This news will not impact the availability of our existing self-published games and ongoing support for them. We are incredibly grateful for our audience and hope that your interest in our work follows individual team members as they head into other roles. Bithell Games was always defined and elevated by our people. Today we are less. That is that hurts. I got to be honest. I think that really stings for a very, very, very small team, right? We're talking a majority of its staff being about 11 people. That's not a lot of people. It really, really isn't. Bithell Games also worked on Subsurface Circular, Quarantine Circular. They also did Tron Identity. Wait, didn't they also do Tron? They did Tron Catalyst as well, right? Yeah, they also did Tron Catalyst. So they did Tron Identity. They did Tron Catalyst. Tron Catalyst just came out earlier this year. It's a kind of a top-down action game for those interested. But yeah, pour one out for the folks over at Bithell Games. That is a very, very tough one, if I may be honest, and I hope everybody involved lands on their feet. Former BioWare executive producer. This may be leaning into more of the rumor mill, so just bear with me here. But former BioWare executive producer says that EA was pitched multiple times to remaster the first 3 Dragon Age games. If you remember, Mass Effect received such a remaster. It's called the Mass Effect Legendary Collection. If you have not played Mass Effect, I don't know what to tell you. Those are great games. You should play them. I could go on. The point is that nobody should be surprised that EA has not done the same thing with the Dragon Age games, because it is quite obvious that EA does not care about the Dragon Age games. The other thing is that potentially the technology is different than that of the Mass Effect games, which would prevent such an easy remastering process. We're almost looking at a scenario where potentially those games would need to get remade. That being said, Mark Dara, which was a former BioWare executive producer who joined the studio in 1997 and worked there for nearly 24 years, was recently on a YouTube channel talking with somebody who said that EA wasn't keen to remaster the first 3 games in the series in the same style as Mass Effect Legendary Collection. Mark Dara says that there was a number of reasons for this, including EA's apparent dislike for remaster projects, stating that EA has historically been, and I don't really know why, but they've said this publicly, that they're kind of against remasters. It's strange for a publicly traded company to basically seem to be against free money, but they seem to be against it, but that's just part of it. For the record, I'm gonna kind of address what Mark Dara just said, which is, I think EA wants the obvious, most easiest remaster money. That's where I think he maybe is mistaken. I think EA will only do a remaster when it is painfully obvious and most of the work is done for them. Think about the re-release of The Sims 1 and Sims 2 that came out this year. You think about the Dead Space remake, which is basically the same game, but, with a couple of improvements, right? You think about the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, right? Mass Effect Andromeda bombed. They needed something to get people excited for Mass Effect again, because they were seemingly going to continue investing in it in a 5th game. And there we have the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. He goes on to say that the other problem is that Dragon Age is just harder than Mass Effect to do, and to some degree, unknowably harder. Maybe only a little bit harder, maybe a lot harder. Dara explained that one of the early suggestions his team made was, let's do Frostbite tools, let's find a mod house that seems talented, and just pay them to do a remake of Dragon Age Origins. There were a lot of pitches around, is there a way we can bring Dragon Age Origins forward? And depending on what we do with the remaster, kind of get Dragon Age 2 for free. With a remake, you don't. Dara noted that one of the potential blockers in the project was the difficulty in remastering games across several different game engines. One of the advantages of Mass Effect is that it's all Unreal Engine instead of 2 different engines. But actually, just for the fact that it's Unreal means you can remaster Mass Effect essentially for money. Right? We all know, even if you don't make games, we know that Unreal Engine is probably easier to work with than most other engines out there. And if you're working on a franchise that has games made on multiple different engines, it's going to be a hell of a lot harder to remaster them. Mark goes on to say, if you're willing to spend money on it, you can go to an external house and they can do most of the work, which is sort of what happened with Mass Effect Legendary Edition. There were a bunch of people at BioWare working on it, but it was, I don't remember how many, but it was not a ton. Yeah, I don't think we see, I think if they're going to do it, they would remake it. And then they would probably only remake Dragon Age Origins. And then they would just forget about everything else. That's what, maybe they do Dragon Age Inquisition. But I just don't think that like anyone's sitting around that excited about the idea of Dragon Age 2. It's hard to say. But it is very obvious that it is going to be a hell of a lot more work, interest, effort to get a Dragon Age remaster or remake out the door than it was for Mass Effect Legendary Collection. Let's continue on with Monster Hunter Wilds. Monster Hunter Wilds, very popular game from this year. not doing so well when it comes to graphical performance, and Capcom says that they will continue to get updates beyond winter as they proceed with caution. This is in regards to something that director Yuya Tokoda said, that the team is trying to reduce CPU load without affecting performance. Since the day of its release in February, Monster Hunter Wilds has drawn criticism from PC players, many of whom complained that the game's performance is poor, with some claiming that even with relatively powerful setups, they're still struggling to get the smooth gameplay from it. Now in a post detailing the game's upcoming version, which is 1.021, Yuya Tokuda explained that the improvements were coming in future updates, but stressed the complications involved in the process. Started by listing some of the improvements made in the game's title update 2, which was released in June 30th. Saying, in title update 2, we fixed bugs related to shader compilation and reduced the impact of anti-cheat measures on processing load by about 90%. In addition, as another option to reduce CPU load while improving frame rate, we implemented support for the latest super resolution technologies DLSS4 and FSR4. In addition, in Title Update 2, we improved our texture loading processes, reducing instances where low-quality textures are displayed when monsters suddenly enter the player's field of view. Title Update 3, which comes out at the end of September, will see similar improvements for NPCs and sacred mounts. Sacred mounts? That's funny. Tokoda then explained that although players have been worried that the game's performance might put extra strain on their CPU, it's not necessarily easy for Capcom to reduce CPU strain without making the game's performance even worse. We are aware that some players have been concerned about the potential strain on their PCs, particularly those using CPUs known to have stability issues, due to prolonged high CPU usage during extended play sessions. On the other hand, as making changes to CPU processing could affect the game's overall performance, we plan to proceed with caution. He then said the team plans to address CPU load reduction in a fourth title update scheduled for this winter, and that once that is complete, they will proceed with the second half of further mitigation measures. Tokoda added, we also address GPU load reduction in similar manner. We will continue to work on improving the game's stability so that more players can enjoy the game on PC with peace of mind. Thank you for your understanding. It turns out that performance-wise, Monster Hunter Wilds just seems like kind of a mess. And I've been told that Monster Hunter Wilds is the Monster Hunter game to get into if you never played Monster Hunter. There's never been a better time, which they said that about Monster Hunter Worlds. But it seems like a goddamn mess. It seems like if they don't even seem to know how to address the performance issues because they think they're just going to transfer one problem to another, seems like a real mess over there. But I'm curious to see if they can end up turning it around. Here's a game that will never get turned around. Microsoft has stopped development on Avalanche Studios' Contraband. The Just Cause developer's latest game was announced 4 years ago, though nothing had been seen since. Contraband was set to offer an open world cooperative game set in the 1970s. Avalanche posted a statement confirming the game is on hold, stopping short of saying it has been outright canceled, saying over the past several years, Avalanche Studios Group and Xbox Game Studios Publishing have collaborated on Contraband. Active development has now stopped while we evaluate the project's future. We're thankful for the excitement we've seen from the community since we announced, and we'll give an update on what's next as soon as we can. I don't see, funding is so hard to get as it is. I don't know if we will see Contraband come out in the future, but who can say? Sony, hey, listen, we didn't, NitWitt hates Sony. NitWitt never wants to talk about the Sony PlayStation. Well, here I am talking about the Sony PlayStation. Sony Chief Financial Officer says its live service shift is not entirely going smoothly, but pledges to carry on and learn from mistakes. Lin Tao says progress has been made despite somewhat negative somewhat negative news caused by Concord and Marathon. You think? You think there's been some negative news about Concord and Marathon? Anyways. This is from Video Games Chronicles. Chris Scullion out there dropping news, saying in a Q&A session following the company's latest financial results, one caller asked its panel of executives for an update on the current state of PlayStation's live service plans and where it sees the issues when it comes to improving its live service games. Sony CFO Lin Tao replied that despite the negativity surrounding Sony's live service offerings, thanks to the issues with Concord and Marathon, she still believes live service games are worthwhile because they've added revenue stream that didn't exist for a company 5 years ago. Last year, Concord shut down, and this year, Marathon was postponed, so somewhat negative news have been coming out. But if we look at the last 5 years, 5 years ago, live service games were almost non-existent for PlayStation Studios. Now, we have Helldivers 2, MLB The Show, Gran Turismo 7, and Bungie's Destiny 2. So we have these 4 live services continuing to contribute sales and profits in a stable manner. Tao had earlier noted during Sony's results presentation that live service games accounted for around 40% of the first-party software revenue for the past quarter, which was cited again in her reply. Of course, we recognize that there are still many issues, so we should learn the lessons from mistakes and make sure that we introduce live service content where there's less waste and it's more smooth. So if you were sitting around wondering, when am I going to get the next great single-player story-based game from PlayStation, it looks like they are still having an emphasis on live service games, and maybe they will crack that nut. Maybe they will put out maybe Fair Games will come out and blow everyone away. Maybe Marathon will be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Maybe Helldivers 2 will be the biggest selling game on Xbox Series X and S this console generation. I don't know, but this is not what I come to Sony for. And if you are in the same boat, you may not be excited to know that they still seem to be finding ways to put a square peg in a round hole. Final news story. This is a really quick one. If you have seen the movie Barbarian or Weapons, you may be familiar with director Zach Kreger. Zach Kreger is working on a Resident Evil movie. However, it will not have any existing characters because fans can already play the games for those stories. Zach says, I'm not going to tell Leon's story because Leon's story is told in the games. That's what Zach said. Earlier this year, it was confirmed that Zach Kreger, the writer-director behind the critically acclaimed horror movie Barbarian and recently released Weapons, will be writing and directing a new Resident Evil movie, which will reboot the film series. In an interview with Inverse, Kreger has now explained that his film won't retell the stories from the games, but instead feature new characters and tell a new story in the same universe. Kreger explained that because he's a big fan of the Resident Evil games, he doesn't feel there's any need to retell their stories because in his eyes, they've already been told well enough. Let me say this is not breaking the rules of the games. Kreger insisting that the new game will still respect the Resident Evil lore. I am the biggest worshiper of the games, so I'm telling a story that is a love letter to the games and follows the rules of the games. It is obedient to the lore of the games. It's just a different story. I'm not going to tell Leon's story because Leon's story is told in the games. Kreger said that if any players were hoping to see characters like Leon, Jill, Chris, or Claire, they can play the games to see those stories. Now, I will say this. I think when we look at what feels like the golden age of video game adaptations, whether that be movies or TV shows, what we have found is that there are really two ways of doing this. You can literally retell the story with some success, in the form of what we saw from The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2 TV shows. Or you can take the story, the lore, the universe, treat it with respect, and then tell your own story, like we have seen in the case of the Fallout TV show, to some extent the Mario Brothers movie, and the Twisted Metal TV show, right? Yeah, there's a tournament in the Twisted Metal, and the characters are there, but they're not necessarily full on retelling the original Twisted Metal story or the original Super Mario story. I mean, yes, you gotta fight Bowser and Princess Peach there and all this stuff, but it's not quite the same thing. I think probably the better example is a game adaptation that literally sticks to the script, like in the case of The Last of Us, and a video game adaptation that takes the universe and the lore and runs with it in its own direction with respect, such as Fallout. So it seems like Zach Krager is looking to maybe something like the presentation of the Fallout TV show for inspiration, and moving away from retelling stories that were already in the games. We're going to take our final break. When we come back, we got a hell of a lot of games to talk about that I have been playing. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. Let's kick things off talking about Battlefield 6. I was going to say Donkey Kong, but we're going to do Battlefield 6. Let's talk about my time with the Battlefield 6 beta. So I'm going to say this first and foremost. Keep it simple. If you have been looking forward to Battlefield, if you're hoping that, Battlefield 6 acts as a return to form from the Battlefield games of yore that you love, whether that be Bad Company 2 or Battlefield 3 or Battlefield 4, this is the Battlefield game for you. This is a game that is hitting all of the Battlefield notes, and is giving me confidence that the full release of the game will be the Battlefield game that you most likely want it to be. Battlefield probably has some of the best sound design in any first-person shooter, especially when you go into the settings and you change it to the War Tapes sound mix. It just sounds so chaotic and so fucked up. It's this type of chaos, this audible chaos that barely gives you space to think. It's just, you feel like you are in the middle of some shit. It also looks quite nice, and it runs incredibly well. One thing I will criticize Battlefield games over the last few years is, while they've looked okay, they have run worse than they should for how they look. Battlefield 6 really seems like a well-optimized game, graphical, performance-wise, technically sound. Like, it is just overall the frame holding the game together seems like a rock solid package. Then you actually get into the game where, when you play Battlefield and the multiplayer, you are choosing between your support class, your engineer class, your infantry class, and your sniper class. I forget what, recon or whatever they call it. And in those classes, you are picking your different weapons and different, loadouts and attachments and stuff like that. And I mainly find myself playing support. And when you play the role of support, you are basically you act as the ammo guy. Like, you can basically drop off ammo for your teammates and be like, hey, you can resupply here and do all that stuff. I initially like to play Battlefield as more of a combat medic. The reason is that I would like to be able to heal myself and others, which might help me might help me with staying alive a little bit longer. But I am terrible at Battlefield 6. I just get destroyed time after time, just like the song. I get my ass handed to me, whether it's by infantry or snipers, or there are vehicles in the game I'll just run around a corner and there's just a tank there, and then I am blown away by the tank. I'm really bad at Battlefield 6. Now, I was expressing this frustration to the people at work because they were all excited about the Battlefield 6 beta. And I just walked in one day and I just said, because I think I might have been I might have gotten a chance to play it because I got into the early access version of the open beta. So I think I'd maybe played it a day before they did. I wasn't bragging or anything. I'm just like, hey, did you guys get in early or did you wait? And then I think they waited or whatever. And I just kind of walked in and I said like, hey, you guys should probably play Battlefield 6. This seems like the game for you. And then they were like, well, what did you think? And they asked me that, like, well, what did you think? And I said, I think I'm really bad at the game. And I think my frustration around how bad I am at Battlefield 6 genuinely prevents me from having the type of fun one might have playing this game. It's this thing of like, you throw yourself out there into the war zone and you just get picked off. You try to play with your teammates. You seem to get picked off before your teammates do. I just found myself banging my head against the wall in terms of just how awful I was at Battlefield 6 in contrast to how neat I think that game is and how strong of a return to form Battlefield 6 is. So I came away from my time with Battlefield 6, at least during the phase 1 of this beta. I know the beta is coming back up. We'll be able to play it again soon. But I just kind of came away from it being like, wow, I can't remember playing a game that I thought was so neat that I sucked so much ass at. It's a real ego killer. It makes me somewhat disinterested in the full version of the game anyways. But I'll maybe try to play a little bit more Battlefield 6 when that beta returns and give you my updated thoughts on it. But coming out of Battlefield 6, I just thought to myself, GnittWitt, is there any competitive first-person shooter that you might enjoy more or be better at and things like that? I've mostly just dropped Fortnite for the time being. I'm not playing a lot of Fortnite. I think that's partially because I just don't want to play a lot of Battle Royale right now. I would rather play a traditional shooter experience, team deathmatch, domination, capture the flag, whatever, bomb defusal, whatever. So I came out of that time with Battlefield 6 being like, I gotta see if there's something for me out there. Now, if you know anything, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that I do usually pick up the annual Call of Duty and play it for a little bit, play through the campaign, play a little bit of the multiplayer, but I don't regularly play, or I'll play the zombies mode. But I'm not playing Call of Duty year round necessarily, right? And I'm also certainly not playing Warzone because, again, I'm just not interested in Battle Royale these days. So, I don't usually do this, but I decided to put my foot in my mouth and I decided to play Splitgate 2. I decided to fire up Splitgate 2. This was after they'd already been announced that, the game was going back into beta and all this other stuff. Like they were basically, getting ready, to put that game back into development phase and, whatever they were going to do with Splitgate, they were going to do. But basically I went into Splitgate 2 thinking this could be the only time I get a chance to even play Splitgate 2. Like, what's to say that 6 months from now, that game completely dies, they completely take it offline, they cancel development? Like, who the hell knows what's going to happen with Splitgate 2? So I decided to fire up Splitgate 2. It did not take me long in my playing of Splitgate 2 to come to a couple of conclusions. One, I was having actually a little bit more fun playing Splitgate 2 than I was Battlefield. And that Splitgate 2 is a significantly worse game than what Battlefield 6 has to offer right now. And immediately I realized why people don't like Splitgate 2. So it was this really like kind of weird thing. I put about like an hour or so into the Splitgate 2 beta. This is not like a crazy amount of time. And I put about the same into the Battlefield 6 beta. So keep all that in mind. That being said, played Splitgate 2, and Splitgate 2 is a much faster game. It is a much more arcadey arena style shooter. There is not the same level of tactics and strategy, or really even thought, needed to play Splitgate 2 the way you would the Battlefield 6 open beta, right? You're not thinking, well, if I heal my teammates, if I pull this guy, if I revive this guy, if I get in this tank, if I get this rocket launcher, if I can find a vehicle, if I can do this, we can maybe turn the tides of war a little bit in Battlefield 6. Like, no, in Splitgate 2, it's like, just shoot a motherfucker and then shoot better and die less and rinse, wash, repeat. Which is something that like of a routine that my lizard brain could get into if I was trying to, find a shooter that I was interested in, or maybe just get a little bit better in general when it comes to competitive shooters. So I found myself doing okay in Splitgate 2. I was shooting guys and doing all that stuff, but there's like so little to that game, and so much of what is there is something that you have to spend money on. Like, I feel like I didn't see a lot of maps in Splitgate 2. There didn't seem to be a lot of modes, and what modes were there didn't even seem that particularly interested. Like, I tried that Battle Royale mode once, and I didn't realize that when you play the Battle Royale mode, you have to play with other people in a squad. So I'm just like, well, fuck it. I don't really give a shit about this squad. I don't really even give a shit about this mode. So I drop in, we almost immediately die, and the game also starts to give me like a bunch of graphical glitches and all this other fucked up stuff. And I'm just like, okay, this Battle Royale mode is a terrible idea, poorly implemented. I'm not going to try this. So I went back to like regular team deathmatch and stuff like that. And it's just, there's just not a lot there. There's not a lot of meat to the bones that is Splitgate 2. And the bones that are there seem calcium deficient. Like, it just, the whole, like, even though I was shooting guys and I wasn't doing too bad, it didn't feel like any of it was worth my time. Like, it wasn't worth the game committing to. It also wasn't a game that I think I would end up feeling any better. Like, if I approach competitive shooters from like, I just want an ego boost, I just want to stomp some people or, win some matches and have some fun. Like, Splitgate 2 didn't even seem worth that, dopamine rush of like, oh my God, I can't believe we pulled out that victory and all that stuff. So I was just like, okay, we're going to uninstall the Splitgate 2 beta right now. We'll keep the Battlefield 6 beta going. And in the meantime, let's see what other competitive shooters I can find that have a community that maybe I'll have some better luck with. And that led me to Halo Infinite. And the problem with Halo Infinite is that a lot of the people that are playing Halo Infinite right now are stone cold killers. These are bad people who have nothing but skills to pay the bills when it comes to Halo Infinite. And keep in mind that Halo Infinite is just the latest game in a long line of Halo games, meaning that the people that are probably playing Halo Infinite have been playing not just Halo Infinite, but Halo in general for a long ass time. Meaning that I'm going up against people who probably have literal decades of Halo multiplayer experience. I did not great. I didn't do great. In fact, I maybe did about as well as I did in the Battlefield 6 open beta in terms of winning games, dying, getting kills, all that stuff. So I just threw my hands in the air and I said, is there even hope for ya boy GnittWitt? Is there any hope that I can get a little bit of confidence playing? Because here's the thing. And you might be able to like connect the dots with this. It's just basically with how it feels like every time I play a game that I'm bad at, I just kind of drop it. I play games to have fun, right? And having fun usually means doing good at a game, winning, performing well, feeling like you're making a difference, that sort of thing, right? which is what my fundamental problem with Battlefield 6 was, is that I felt like a genuine liability to the performance of my team playing Battlefield 6 because I sucked so much ass at it, right? In the case of Splitgate 2, I didn't even seem to care if I was making a difference or not, because it didn't seem like a game that would hold my interest long term anyways. In the case of Halo Infinite, going back to feeling like a liability and just genuinely frustrated in my performance in the game. So I don't usually do this. I don't use a lot of Chat GPT, the text chat thingy. But I went to Chat GPT, and I basically told Chat GPT, I said, I played the Battlefield 6 open beta. I play Call of Duty for a little bit every year. I've messed around with Halo Infinite. I have tried Splitgate 2. I used to play Destiny. I don't anymore. And I basically went to ChatGPT and said, here's all the information about my history playing competitive first-person shooters. Recommend me a game, or recommend me something that like I could eventually get better at playing. And the game that ChatGPT ended up recommending me, among a variety of games, was a little game called Overwatch 2. And if you remember me talking about Overwatch 2 in the podcast, it was mostly me talking about how people seem to hate Overwatch 2, that it was a disappointment upon launch, and that people just genuinely are not happy about the state of Overwatch 2. I briefly played the Overwatch 1 open beta when that game was coming out, like years and years and years ago. And I had somehow bought Overwatch 1 on PC at some point. Briefly played that, but now, Overwatch 2, free to play, away we go. So I fired up Overwatch 2, and it just started to click a little bit for me. If you're not familiar with Overwatch 2, the thing with Overwatch 2 is that it's a lot of objective-based game modes, such as attack, and your team is going to spend time attacking or defending a particular area. You're going to be, escorting something throughout the battlefield, stuff like that. The other thing with that game is that you do not play as a single character, like a custom character. You are picking from a group of pre-made characters with their own weapons, abilities. So it's almost like a fighting game in the sense that you have to learn kind of the abilities of the characters, what type of role they do. Some characters are support, meaning that they're going to be healing and providing upgrades and stuff to your other teammates. Some characters are tanks, meaning that they're going to be on the front lines, taking the most damage, perhaps dealing the most damage. And then there's another class of characters called, I think they're just called damage, and they are basically supposed to chip away at they're the ones that are supposed to be chipping away at the healers and the tanks, slowly chipping away at them, basically denying teams' ability to properly heal their characters and so on and so forth. And there are dozens and dozens of characters across those three different character classes, right? I thought to myself, okay, what is the most meat and potatoes? Like, if you just were like, I'm a dumb guy who just plays, shooters and is dumb. What is like the most obvious, easy mode character to play? It's not easy mode in the sense that like the game is easy, but like, what is the most easy character for me to wrap my mind around in terms of abilities and how they're supposed to be used and what type of role that character plays? And I stumbled upon a character that I had already was familiar with and had heard of. They were in Overwatch 1. I started to pick up a character called Soldier 76. And Soldier 76 is a damage dealer. He can also put out a healing spot in the battlefield, so you can either stand there or other people can stand there and they can get healed. He has a gun, just a regular like assault rifle, just like 30 round shoot, reload, etc. And he has this like rocket launcher ability, like he can shoot like these like three rockets that do additional damage. The idea is that you would soften up your target by shooting them and then use the rocket to kind of finish them. And then his special ability is a visor that basically auto locks to the characters that you're aiming at, and you can just hold down the fire button and just kill them without needing to aim with the same level of precision. And I gotta be honest, not only have I won more matches than I've lost so far playing Overwatch, but I feel like I have genuinely contributed as a well-balanced and well-performing player in the Overwatch 2 games that I have. Like, so in a sense, it's two things. One, I find the game actually to be kind of fun. I'm genuinely enjoying, myself to some extent as a newbie, but I also feel like I feel positive about my experience playing the game because I'm performing well and winning, right? It's like the thing of like, if you're just banging your head against a boss battle in a game, you're probably not going to be having a lot of fun because you've just been struggling to get through that section of the game. Now imagine a scenario where every, encounter that you have in Overwatch feels like a boss battle that you just can't beat. It would be frustrating, right? People like that dopamine rush of not only getting unlocks and perks and bonuses and stuff like that in the games that they're playing, but also feeling like they're making a difference, having some fun, right? If you just played Tetris and lost at Tetris all day, you probably wouldn't have that much fun in Tetris, even though Tetris is one of the greatest video games ever made. That being said, it is very early days for me with my time in Overwatch 2. Maybe I will return to it. I'll probably return to it, keep messing with it, and if anything changes, I will let you know. But so far, Overwatch 2, surprising amount of fun, especially for someone who went into it with incredibly low expectations and figured I would be just as bad at it as the other competitive first-person shooters that I have been playing. I also decided to pick up another first-person shooter called Quake 1 and Quake 2. I picked those up on my Switch 2. I wanted like a first-person shooter to play on Switch 2 that was fast-paced and maybe could get me a little bit better with just like strafing and moving and aiming and, just quick reactions and that sort of thing. Overwatch 2 is not a very quick reaction game. It's more about you being in position, you knowing when to, engage in a fight and when to back out of a fight, knowing when to target specific enemies that are healing the characters that you're fighting, because you can shoot a character that has a tank that has a lot of health. And if that tank character is also being healed, you will never shoot them enough to chip away at their life bar before they get to you. So it's like, oh, there's the healer, shoot the healer. Oh, there's this other person, get them first and let the tanks worry about the tanks and just make sure you're in position. And also, Overwatch 2 is also a game very much about you making sure you don't die so that there isn't one less, enemy for your opposing team to get through as they try to complete objectives and stuff like that. Overwatch 2, a decent amount of fun. I'll probably keep picking away at it. Quake 1 and 2, hey, it's classic Quake. Those are a lot of fun. And I am still making my way through Donkey Kong Bonanza on Switch 2. I would say, looking at, it's hard to see. I want to say I'm anywhere from about a third to half of 50% done that game, though I will probably have a better idea of where I'm at in that game when we return to talk about the podcast next week. But having a ton of fun with Donkey Kong Bonanza is still probably the most fun I've had playing a 2025 game so far this year. And I am excited to talk about it more when I have made significantly more progress in the game. It's just a scenario where I split my time across, I got to play Battlefield 6, and I got into shooters, and I don't know what I'm going to do with my life when it comes to first-person shooters. So we'll have more to say on Donkey Kong and probably Overwatch 2 and Battlefield 6 sometime next week. Until then, that is going to do it for the podcast. I have been GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt. GnittWitt. That is going to do it for the Glitch Report podcast. We will see you all next week. Take it easy.